Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Sellik the Thunder. We're doing our first ever live phone in tonight. I'm very excited. I'm going to do what I done last night. I'm going to sit at an angle because I'm not sitting staring into that camera the whole night. Ryan, before we get going, if I'm going to say this completely before we even started, I hope you've sent the link to everybody to join this that is lined up because I've forgotten to. I'll do it. It's fine. I'll do it. You can talk away. Don't worry. Don't stress. We're here for a couple of hours to just talk everything about the current state of Celtic Football Club while also getting as many people involved as possible. You know how a phone-in works. You've seen the Sellik the Thunder phone-ins and yeah, this is our own version and we're finally doing it live. So who knows? Maybe tonight's the night that Kieran Old finally scraps with a Sellik da. What a way to start the show, by the way. Connor Hall with a £2 donation there. All right, guys, sack the board. We'll come on to that. Thank you very much, Connor. It's going to be a long night. I've already kind of introduced you, but I'll start off with that. Kieran, how you doing, mate?
I know bad, man. Just on the live shows, like I'm a wee bit nervous, but
you can't be that nervous. You look fine. Nah. You look fine. Nah. I was nervous that you actually weren't going to turn up because you took a while to join the call. I thought it was just going to be me and Ryan.
No, the laptop was being a bastard, so that's what's to blame.
And of course, Ryan, you were on live with me last night as we went and spoke about the news of, Ange Postecoglou perhaps having to wait a bit longer to become Celtic manager. We've got a lot to talk about today in relation to that looks as though it could change it. So yeah, McGinley, how you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad. It's coming up in a week now since the heartbreak of the Eddie Howe news came through. So I'm basically recovered from it. So I'm going to try and be a wee bit more positive tonight. I'm sick of being negative, so I'll try and be a wee bit more positive.
Have you actually recovered though? Like, have you genuinely recovered?
No, but I'm still recovering from this vaccine yesterday. Never mind.
I know you're good. Well, do you know what? We'll move on anyway, and we'll go and we'll talk about Celtic. We'll get into this one big mess. We're going to have so many points brought up by callers tonight that will kind of light the path for us and what we got to talk about. But we may as well start off with the news surrounding Ange Postecoglou and everything that's happened today. So last night, me and McGinley were on as we sat and spoke about the situation with Ange Postecoglou. UEFA spokesperson last night said that Postecoglou does not currently hold the UEFA Pro licence. Recognition of competence procedure has been initiated. The process could take several weeks. We don't have any further information to provide at this stage. Personal terms between Celtic and Postecoglou are said to be progressing well, and the clubs are in negotiations with Yokohama over a compensation fee. Now, that was last night, Kieran. This morning, there have been reports, and whether to believe them or not, that a compensation fee has been agreed. Now, me and Ryan have already kind of had our 2 cents in this, but what's your reaction to it all, especially if this whole 2 to 3 weeks thing could become a stumbling block for Celtic?
I mean, it's the last thing we needed to happen because we've got such a limited window between now and the qualifiers starting for the Champions League. You want to try and get a manager in settled and trying to implement. I know a lot of our players are away for the Euros, but I mean, just trying to implement his style and the players that are still there when they come back for their summer break. It's just about getting as much time in as possible, and it's just nothing's gone right there. Absolutely nothing. I mean, I know we can look at this getting the compensation sorted from as a positive, but I mean, at the same time, for this stumbling block of the pro license not to be like sorted so long ago, it's just such a fuck up from start to end.
Yeah, seeing that article last night really worried me because thinking about having to wait 2 to 3 weeks, Ryan, that was quite scary considering how long we've already waited. But also, just to throw this back up on screen, the part we talked about was a recognition of competence procedure. Now, that's something that we've never heard before. It's something that Celtic Football Club probably shouldn't have to go through, a recognition of competence. You've had kind of 24 hours to sleep over it now and after last night's live stream. Are you very much still in the same mindset as you were when we were live last night, Ryan?
I'm not as angry as what I was last night, but I will say that my moods go up and down now regarding Celtic. Some days I'll feel happy about them, then the next I'll be utterly raging. It all depends on what they do. I'm still annoyed that we have to go through like a competence test for a manager. We shouldn't need to go through that. We should be able to just bring somebody in. I know he's from Australia and that, but it's a wee bit embarrassing that we have to go through that to get a manager in the door. 2 to 3 weeks. We don't have 2 to 3 weeks. We're already, I would say, 2-3 months behind schedule in terms of prepping for this next season. So yeah, I mean, they say it's 2 to 3 weeks, could be even longer if it's Celtic you're talking about. They can stretch that out as long as they can. I mean, their definitions of certain words like imminent are very different to what my definitions of those words are. Imminent would mean in the next 2 to 3 days. It's been nearly a week now and we've not heard anything regarding the manager apart from that statement that came out a week ago. So they just need to get a move on because this season's creeping up on us really quickly. I mean, before you know it, the Euros will be over and we'll be thrust into a Champions League qualifier, and I don't really expect much from that at all, to be perfectly honest.
But Kieran, the big problem now is that the board have just further dug themselves into a hole that seems, we can't get out of. It seems like it's genuinely unescapable. And this morning, the board had the audacity, and the social team had the audacity to post on the social media of the new away kit. Now, that is them now in the space of the last week, asked for money for season tickets, asked for money for the new away kit, and also told us that Eddie Howe has fallen through and we're resulting to a plan B, which could take weeks. The board genuinely now, I think we can all safely say we've known this for a while, but genuinely have no clue what they're doing or where they're going.
No, God knows what's going on in that boardroom. Like, honestly, what are they doing with their time? What have they been doing for the past few months? Because 100 days, is it the day or the tomorrow? That is since Lennon was
100 days today. Aye.
My God, man.
I said last night, right? Do you don't think it would have been suitable for me to start this live show tonight with the party popper that I used for the day that Lennon was sacked 100 days ago? That was.
And we're still put that clip in, but reversed it. So the party popper back into it, I think.
But Kieran, the board they've just killed all hope of everything, haven't they?
I mean, they keep shooting themselves in the foot. You just need a bit of good news to come out to try and get some people inside. Well, it's going to be hard to get people inside, but I mean, just trying to calm people down a wee bit. But there's absolutely nothing like they're doing now that's calming anybody down. Like, if anything, people's anxiety about next season is just increasing by the day because it seems nothing is in place. Nothing will be put in place in the near future. And long story short, it just seems like we're fucked.
Nicely put. As always, the Kieran analysis, Kieran. Now, before we welcome in our first caller, I see a lot of people in the chat who are sitting asking about how did they get involved? How do people phone in to the Sellik the Thunder phone-ins? Well, as you can see, scrolled across the bottom of the screen, make sure to follow us on Twitter at Sellik Podcast. That is your best chance of getting involved in the shows and future shows. And yeah, I love that from Mark, by the way. See, I remember that I've got a ping pong table in the boardroom Mackay's supposed to be. I remember the recreation room that Lennon set up for them all to talk in to get to know each other.
That could have very easily been one of those PR disasters. Get to know each other.
Very quickly as well, before we welcome in our first caller, just to throw up another snazzy graphic, there was a report that if Ange Postecoglou was to fall through and that move wasn't to happen, Rui Patricio there. The goalie, he's coming in. The Daily Record was reporting last night that if he wasn't coming in to Celtic, Ange Postecoglou, that Rui Faria had emerged as a potential alternative. Former assistant, of course, to Jose Mourinho, a lot of his clubs, including Porto, Chelsea, Inter Milan, Real Madrid, Manchester United most recently, and left him there in his second season at Manchester United. Apparently, he was the second option if Postecoglou wasn't to happen. Ryan, very quickly before we welcome in Elliot, who's our first caller, does that what do you think about Rui Faria? Because to me, I'm going to go out on a limb here. I feel like he should be the backup choice over Ange Postecoglou, controversially.
Yeah, he probably should be. I mean, maybe Postecoglou has the sort of up on him, or the sort of advantage over him that he's actually been a manager for longer. That sort of 25 years that Celtic are talking about for experience. I know he's managing. Is it Rui Faria?
Yes, Rui Faria, Rui Faria, something like that. Sorry if I've got it wrong. Sorry.
I know. I think he's managing in Qatar at the moment, isn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, he's a rookie as well. I mean, they're both not the ideal candidates, I would say, but I think I would say out the two of them, Postecoglou's got more experience. I know Faria's had has been involved in many top class systems as an assistant manager to Jose Mourinho, but he's never really been in the hot seat apart from this job in Qatar. And you could say the same for Postecoglou, but it's so much more different in Qatar than it is in Scotland. So I don't know how he can make the step up. I could make that argument for both of them, but I think Postecoglou's got more experience in terms of having the top seat at a club.
Yep. Well, we're going to welcome in our first caller anyway. Elliot joins us here on the screen. Elliot, mate, how you doing?
I'm all right, man. I'm all right. I'm as good as you can be. You know what I mean?
You sound as scunnered as the rest of us with the entire situation.
Happy 100 days, boys. That's all I'm saying, man.
Thanks very much. Look, what do you want to kick us off with tonight? You're the first caller, so the floor is yours. You know, just bring up anything you want to get off your chest.
I wanted to just talk about the rebuild. I think everybody's sort of talking about the rebuild. I don't think we realise how fucking hard this rebuild is going to be. With this state that the club's in now. What drawing power do we have at this moment? I know Celtic's a big club. It's one of the biggest clubs in history. But right now, looking in, you would look at that and you'd see a burning house and you'd think, I think I'm all right.
Yep. It's like Ange Postecoglou here. I'll let you start off. Ange Postecoglou, of course, I think we're trying to warm to the idea of it. We're trying to be optimistic. The thing that you brought up there, Elliot, very big, is draw factor. Is there a draw factor at Celtic in a minute? Not just with the disaster that we find ourselves in, but also with a manager who's pretty unknown around here, Kieran. We've landed ourselves in a terrible situation for recruitment.
I know we might like to kid ourselves on everybody sees it the way we see it. I mean, obviously we know Celtic's a big club and it is a big club, but I mean, maybe we've got delusions about how attractive a move this would be for players to come to the club, especially when you've got a manager that, as you said, is virtually unknown to most people in Europe. Like, we spoke about this briefly in the other podcast, talking about how there's no Brendan Rodgers, I want to go and play under him. We don't have that pulling factor for players anymore, so it's just, where do we go? Because as Elliot said, it's such a massive job we've got on our hands here, and how are we going to get players in? Because it's such an unattractive option on paper right now.
I'll ask you a question, Elliot. If you were a football player right now, and if you were to be brutally honest, right, and try to take away all optimism and Celtic side of things, right, if you're a player right now and the option for you to go to Celtic under Ange Postecoglou was one of a few options, would you be realistically considering that, or would it be a write-off at this moment in time?
To be fair, I think you would obviously consider it. I think Celtic's, like we were saying, Celtic's a massive club, massive history. But when you take it back, let's even take it back to last season. You take it back to last season, and a player is coming in, and we're going, we've won 9 in a row. We're the Scottish champions. We were progressing in Europe. We're looking forward to winning this 10 in a row. We've got these fans, and now you look at it compared to last season. We've lost the league. We've not got a manager. The backroom staff, I'm worried about, because we've basically told them that they can piss off. And then, now that Eddie Howe's not coming, we went, no, it's all right. It's actually, we were only kidding on. We were only joking. That was funny, that. But it's the kind of thing where, even now looking at Celtic compared to a championship club, you go, where is my career going to progress more, here or down there? And it's a very, very tight first and second compared to last season, where you would have definitely said that Celtic was the main option.
Yeah, Ryan. Elliot, you make a fantastic point there, and we've not even begun. We've not even started talking about the backroom staff, because of course there was that rumour going about today that Kennedy and Strachan are actually going to stay at the club, much to our despair. But Ryan, a very good point there. Like we've moved very much backwards in this past year. The gap between being a desirable move and an undesirable move has really, came close. And you even look at the other side of the city. If your players are getting a choice between Sellik and Rangers, this time last year we laughed at the thought of players going to Rangers over Celtic. Maybe not so much this time last year, but even 2 years ago, say, right? Celtic was the easy, the smart choice. Now, we're certainly moving backwards, right?
We are, yes, and I think you can look at it in both ways. Yes, Rangers will be might be a more attractive proposition for some of these players that are maybe got offers with the two clubs. But I would say as well that there's less pressure. But I mean, there is pressure on the players coming in, but there's not that pressure of 10 in a row for any new players coming in. So it's a bit of a clean slate. I know people are desperate for us to go and reclaim the title next year, but it's not as if we're going for that 10 that we were going for so long over the past decade. It's just a title at the end of the day. I mean, we've won tons of them in the past. I know we need to win it back, but it's not as special as what it would have been if it was 10 in a row. So I don't think some of the players coming in will have as much pressure. I mean, it comes and goes. It's 50-50, but I still think it is an attractive place to come to, especially if Postecoglou hits the ground running and he starts playing maybe younger players in the team, starts getting a fresh nucleus of the team in. But it's all really it's a big unknown. I know he's a big fan of bringing in youths and not really relying on sentimentality too much. So that's definitely something to look out for in the future when it looks as if he's going to get the job. So that will be the case. He will probably implement that, which is good because we need some freshness in the squad. We're crying out for it.
Elliot, you've raised some magnificent points there in terms of the rebuild. Yeah, but I think that there has to be I think there's a lot of fans who really are underestimating the size of this. Before we move on to the next call, have you got anything else? I think in the message you said there was a couple of things you want to touch on. So is there anything else you'd like to bring up?
I think the thing I was speaking to a guy in the pub last night.
Okay. Were you actually in the pub?
I was actually in the pub with my bird, and this man started shouting at me across the room about Celtic, and it was great. But he started talking about, like, he wanted Martin O'Neill and Roy Keane, and like Martin O'Neill's the director of football, and I instantly thought, like, shut up. But then he said something that was actually like kind of sparked me. He was talking about Peter Loyal and Dermot Desmond, and when Dominic Mackay comes in, we are seeing Dominic Mackay as right now. He's got the reins. He's got. Mm-hmm. He's sitting at the head of the table. He's making the decisions. But is he? Does he have all the power we think he does? With Loyal and Desmond still having that much percentage and stakes in the club? Yep. Does Dominic Mackay have the power that we think he does to make the decisions?
Well, this is the worrying thing, isn't it, Ryan? We touched on this last night, and we've touched on that a few times because I know privately to me you've been a bit worried about this. Kieran, I'll come at you here because you've not really spoke as much on this situation as what Ryan has recently on the show. That has been a worry. A lot of fans are voicing that maybe Dominic Mackay hasn't had the start, and I'm very much of the opinion that Dominic Mackay hasn't had the start we would have wanted. But the worry is still there that Peter Lawwell's the man behind the behind the scenes pulling those strings. So does that worry you, Kieran?
It worries me deeply because, as you said, it's not the start we were expecting from him, because we were all optimistic about this guy coming in, his fan interaction and like this and that, and it's just been disaster after disaster since he supposedly came in to start helping it. And it makes you wonder if Big Peter is still pulling the strings in that boardroom, or if this is Dominic Mackay's, like if he's the one taking the reins. But I don't know. It's still concerning because I don't know if we expected an overnight like complete change around and everything to be different straight away. But at the same time, I don't know. I really don't, because it's so confusing when there's so little coming out of the boardroom at Parkhead and you've just got no idea what's happening.
Well, Elliot, it has been brilliant to have you on, mate. You've been an absolute gentleman. Spoke very well there, mate. And I hope to have you on again. That was brilliant. So thanks very much, mate.
Cheers, mate. Thanks for having us on.
No worries. Time. Take lads. Care, my man.
See you
too. Right, so Elliot was the first caller. We'll move on to the second call in a minute, but a lot of good points there, lads. I think he spoke really well, Ryan, when it came to that rebuild. We're going to be talking a lot about that tonight. We have another, 5 or 6 callers to come on. I imagine there's going to be no shortage of rebuild talk, but it's one that's took long enough, and going on much longer, it only makes you worry more, Ryan.
It definitely does. I think in order for a rebuild to properly happen, there needs to be a complete wiping of the decks, and that includes some of the members of the board, Peter Lawwell especially. The word retire to me means retire, as in you don't have anything else to do with the club. You go off and dance into the sunset or whatever. See if he was to come in 2-3 months' time as a chairman, it wouldn't surprise me, but it would enrage me. But you could just see that happening. And to be fair, the chairman's not... He's not getting no part in this. He's quite quiet. He just allows everything to happen. He doesn't really have much of a say. And I did hear a rumour that Dominic Mackay is actually quite close friends with Ian Bankier as well. So I'm not. He can't even spell my second name right. I've corrected him about 5 or 6 times.
I guess fine. Yeah, but that's fine. Look, we're going to welcome in our second caller now. We're going to welcome in Mark. Mark, mate, I love the shot, by the way. How you doing?
Not bad, guys. How are you?
Hi, getting there. we're a bit scunnered, as we said to the first caller, you know, just about how everything's happening. But we'll move on anyway. What would you like to talk about, mate?
A couple of things. I think mostly the first thing is probably the saga regarding his license for this Postecoglou. How is it you say his name?
Postecoglou. I'm sure that's
I
it.
would call him Ange. Right? We'll call him Ange. Well, I've done a bit of digging online just to see what this process entails. So I think it's Article 3 of the recognition of competence for UEFA. So what happens is he has to apply for this form to be sent to the SFA. They do a bit of due diligence, make sure everything's in order. So they've got to send that back to the Asian Soccer League, the ASL. Mm-hmm. They've got to do their own background checks on the SFA to make sure they've done their part well as well. But sometimes this requires a lot of paperwork. So that's the hold up with it. Also, it could be minimum 2 or 3 weeks, and that's required. And that's if everything's in place. That is. And if you don't require any more paperwork, it should be straightforward. But it means the two FAs have got to get together. And I don't hold much trust in our SFA to do the right things at the right time, especially when they've got a wee bit of the Euros to worry about just now. They've got a wee bit of distraction. So I'm not looking too sure they're going to do us any favours in terms of timeline.
Yeah, it's really worrying. That was we kind of opened the show with that about the whole 2 to 3 weeks they're talking here process. And I've already asked Kieran and Ryan their opinion that, Mark. But to you, do you think Celtic can afford 2 or 3 more weeks to wait for another manager?
Well, no, because I think even best case scenario with Eddie Howe, he was going to come in, win about the new, maybe even a couple of days ago. That was best case scenario. And even at that, I thought this guy's a well-measured individual. He probably had 3 or 4 guys that was going to come in. And there was an instant structure there straight away.
Yep.
And I thought that was still going to take... I thought next year was a right half anyway, guys. I'm not going to lie to you. Especially Europe, that's a distraction. I don't want to go in the Confederations Cup, whatever you call it. I just don't want to go near that. But that's a distinct possibility. And it's £3 million in the pocket of the club. So you can imagine them pushing the manager to get into that. But anyway, I thought that in place would have been a real long-haul thing. Now, this guy just sets it back maybe even another season. I'll tell you why. I think this guy is going to come in. I think Stratton and Kennedy's going to be there, whether you like it or no, they're going to be there. Mm-hmm. They're going to have these guys. I think he's looking to bring in a guy called John Hutchinson and a young guy called Sean Ontong. This guy's only 34-year-old, but he's in Football Academy. And he seems to have done a wee bit of work along with another ex-professional. I can't remember the guy's name now. Two of them have actually got, they're quite young, 41 and 34, but two of them have got a wee bit of pedigree. They've done a year or two in a couple of places, and I think Hutchinson's worked with Ange before a couple of times, and it was billed as a dream team. All that aside, I think we're still looking at a season to actually implement the football he's looking at. We've got maybe 8 first team players, maybe 6 starting 11 players to buy, and that's got to start yesterday. No in 2 weeks' time, no in 3 weeks' time, and not even tomorrow. Yesterday.
You've got everybody's heads nodding away here because you're pretty much spot on everything you're saying there, and that's the worry, Kieran, isn't it? Now it's not just about getting the manager in. It's the whole process around it, Kieran. It's getting these guys that are his coaches. It's getting players. It's getting a starting 11 ready for next season. And just to touch on, because we haven't touched on it yet, Kieran, what about Kennedy and Strachan? I think that's completely backwards, bringing in Ange Postecoglou for a rebuild, only to have 2 of the guys who were part of the burning fire still there.
I know what a laugh that's going to be. Like 2 of the guys that have been helping taking charge after Lennon left, and nothing's changed. Everybody had these high hopes that Kennedy, in his brief spell in charge, might have tried to implement a different style of football, but we've just seen the exact same, if not worse, when Lennon left. So I don't think there's any redemption for John Kennedy at Celtic to be part of any coaching setup. In the past, I've kind of sat on the fence about it and said I'm not too bothered if he stays or if he doesn't. I don't think there should be any remnants left to the coaching setup at Celtic right now. I think they should just be allowed a blank slate and start again, because if it's a true rebuild, then they should be able to bring in who they want. And then, as Mark said, it's going to take a while to implement the style of football. You might as well have every tool available to you. And that means having your own coaches to help implement it in the team. But it's just constant shooting ourselves in the foot with all these different things, and keeping Kennedy and Stratton's certainly one of them.
What's your opinion on that, Mark, about Kennedy and Strachan? There was rumours today about them staying. Are you gutted to hear those sort of rumours?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you, mate. Sometimes you just get a wee feeling about things, and I've always thought the two are still going to be there. It's more so Kennedy than Strachan. I think Strachan can maybe go to more. I don't think he's got much ties in with the club other than his dad and his brother. But I think with Kennedy, I think maybe, especially with what he did last season, his 10 game stint, I think the club maybe, and wrongly in my eyes, feel like they kind of owe him more than just to say, right, thanks, can I get my keys back? I'll see you later. I think he should go. I think I'll be gutted for looking at that dugout and see him sitting there, but he is absolutely going to be there. And if Don Mackay is watching what's going on and he's sitting by and letting Peter Lawwell drive this car off a cliff without grabbing the steering wheel, then he is not only culpable as much as Lawwell, he's actually encouraging it, because he's the one that's got to be left with the mess of this the mess of this season is going to carry on for a couple of years. And if he's going to be there, he's going to be left with a mess. And if he encourages Lawwell to appoint Kennedy in any other role other than a youth setup, then he is getting after an absolute stinker, and he deserves to be under scrutiny for day one. And I think his stint started 6 weeks ago. No, on the 1st of July, that I've heard boys saying on Twitter. If that guy's in just now, and he's got the backbone that we're all told he's got about, and he's supposed to be his PR man. I'm going to have to tangent. He's supposed to be his PR man, and he's stinted. There's only 2 colours in Glasgow. There's blue and green. That's it, right? I'm not got a big issue with it, but you turn up for your first day at work with a blue suit and a blue tie. No, if you're a PR man, see, we turned up with a green suit on, you'd be saying you tried a bit harder, mate. But you turn up with a blue tie on, mate, and a blue suit. And then the same PR guy accidentally lets the season tickets go on sale on the Wednesday morning. They must have, I think they forgot to stop that automatic sale on Wednesday morning. And somebody said, oh, by the way, there's 5,000 guys on Twitter moaning if the tickets went on sale if it telling anybody. And that's under his watch. They forgot to do that.
A lot of what you're saying there, Mark, when it comes to Mackay and it comes to the under scrutiny from day one is very much right. And I'm looking at you here. This is very much what you've been echoing, especially in the last couple of shows, the couple of live shows that we've done. You're making a lot of really good points, Mark. You're a natural at this. But Ryan, I was going to come to you next, and Mark's done my job here in bringing the point on that what I was going to come to you with. It is really difficult territory now for Don Mackay, because he is off to the worst possible start. He will be under scrutiny if he doesn't get things together very shortly. Fans have already shown that on Twitter and on social media. There is a bit of tension in the air, and that's worrying, right?
Yep. I mean, personally, I would have liked him to have came out in his first week to sort of address the fans. I don't know if that's maybe standing on Lawwell's feet, but that's what I would have wanted. I feel like, if I was putting it back into a footballing sort of analogy, he's like on minus 10 points before the season's even started with all of this carry on. I mean, the warning signs were already there when I read that statement from Dermot Desmond saying that Peter Lawwell would play a big role in employing the new manager. I don't see how that's productive at all. If Dominic Mackay is going to be dealing with this manager predominantly, why is Peter Lawwell getting such a big say in someone else's employee? It just doesn't make sense to me at all. It's counterproductive, and it makes me wonder if Peter Lawwell still has a place on that board, whether it be a non-executive director or chairman, and that worries me.
Yeah, there's been murmurs of that, hasn't there, that he will have that, and we've been kind of running with that on the shows, talking about how he'll still be there in the backdrop, worryingly. Mark, before we let you go, have you got anything else you'd like to bring up before we move on to the next caller?
Just one thing that I feel that it's going to be spoken about in a wee bit, a platform that is a wee bit more, is the fact that the club's getting away with murder now because the fans aren't in the stadium. We all know that. We all know that Lennon would have been probably out the door early October if we all had a chance. But I feel like we need to get a point where we need to get across to the board, anybody that's watching this for the club, that this isn't going to get better with a couple of wins in August. No, and you might sell your scene tickets out. You might not sell your scene tickets. I'm not sure actually, to be honest with you. But this isn't going away. Because see, the taste of this season, the last season, has got to a long time to get out of some of the Celtic fans' throats. Not only the results, I actually stopped worrying about the results a long time ago. I'm more worried about the fact that our board is let a fan base become apathetic. There was games I was watching last season and I turned them off. I mean, there was two of the derby matches I watched. I turned two of them off at half time. I couldn't imagine. If you told me that last year, I wouldn't be anywhere else in the world other than watching a Sellik game. I wouldn't be anywhere.
Yep.
And the fact that I turned them off, just not even dreading the result, just no feeling like I was interested in what was happening in front of my eyes. I can't believe. And by the way, I'm not the only guy that thinks that way.
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. Trust me.
They're going to get the guys back. They're going to get the fans back on track, and it's going to take more than a fancy wee slogan. I don't know if you've seen the slogan today for the Sellik tap. I think that
real fans or something.
Real fans. So I don't know if that's a wee kick in the teeth at some of the fans that are maybe suggesting they're not going to renew, or whether they're trying to put it into their heads that, do you know what? See if you don't want this, somebody's going to come in behind you. They're the real fans. And by the way, they're going to get a shock because see that waiting list that they told me was 15,000. No, it's no. Because I know folk that was right down to the very last knockings when they got their season tickets 3 days before the deadline finished. So they're going to get a wee surprise. I can see that tarpaulin coming back out in the top tier.
Would not be shocked. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on, mate. You've been absolutely brilliant. If we're ever doing it again, feel free to come back on. It would be an honour, my man.
You guys take care. It's a great show.
Yep, thanks very much, mate. You take care as well and enjoy your weekend. See you after, mate.
Well, do it, bud. Bye.
See you. Well, honestly, Mark was brilliant there, by the way. Absolutely brilliant. A lot of good points. And we were meant to have somebody else coming on. I just realised it was actually meant to be before Mark, but they've no showed us. They've stood us up. So we're going to just kind of fill the next 10 minutes until the next guest with our own talk. And I want to pick up from where Mark left off there, because Mark left off with some very good points in regards to, number one, that slogan that came out today about real fans, about the sour taste in our mouth, and about kind of not giving us that same sort of love for the club that we used to have over the past few months. Kieran, it has been so difficult, and they're just making it more difficult. What's your take on everything that Mark said there towards the end?
See, what he said about the apathy, really, that stands out because it puts it perfectly, because watching the last however many games of the season, I know it was out of sight and that, but it's just to have the life actually sucked out of watching Celtic like this. Over the past year, you thought knowing the grounds, but the one thing that will get you through is watching your team on the telly. You can't be there, you're still trying to support them. But we've just had the life sucked out of us this season, watching Celtic, and especially near the end of that season, it just seemed like everybody gave up the ghost long ago. The people in the dugout didn't care, the people on the pitch didn't care, and certainly not the people in the boardroom. So it really, it's resonated onto the fan base. And what he was saying about the waiting list, I'd like to think that's true, about the fact that people, they've not got this backlog of people that are definitely going to jump in and take somebody's place. But at the same time, I don't know if that is the case, because I still feel like if somebody was to try and make a stand and no renew their season ticket, then there'd be 10 people waiting behind you ready to take it. So I don't know. I just don't know if anything like that's going to be able to get coordinated, especially in times like this.
Well, we've actually got the person who stood us up in the waiting room, so I'll allow them into the call in a second. It's Jamie that's going to be on next. But what I want to talk about very quickly is the fact that we've got a big star on soon. We're going to have Fat Boy Beans on later on tonight. Beans will be here, and he will be taking part in the very famous, as we all know, but can they play quiz. He will be taking part in our Beat the Pundits Do quiz when he's on later on. So don't worry, there will be a quiz. So we're having a bit of fun. But we may as well welcome on Jamie now. Jamie's down on the bottom of the screen there. How you doing, my man?
Hi, I'm fine. I don't have a camera, so
that's fine. Don't worry about that.
So I got a picture of a smile of sorrow to make
the most gorgeous man in Celtic. Perfect, mate. What do you want to talk to us about?
Well, basically, we have a lot of players out on loan, and they could all probably be of use, and well, most of them anyway. And the squad, like Jack Henry, played for Scotland last night, was very good, in my opinion. Anyway, he could easily come in and be like a third choice centre back, maybe along with Julian and someone we sign. Ball and goalie, he's better than Taylor, but I don't think he'll ever get a chance again. I'd sign Josh Doig from Hibs, but loan him back to Hibs and have Ollie and Taylor next season. Shved, Marian Shved. I like Shved. I refuse to believe you can go from scoring 20 something goals in a better league than ours, in the Ukrainian league, and still end up being just not used at all. So I think he could easily come in and be a backup to Forrest, him and Dembele for backup right winger. And Bayo is done well in France. I think he could easily be a squad player as well.
Yeah, you've brought up a good point about a lot of the players there. Now, very quickly, Ryan, you're my go-to guy in this situation. You do a lot of reading, you do a lot of kind of keeping up with podcasts and everything else. What is the situation with Hendry at the minute? Is he going to be a Celtic player by the end of this window, or is it looking likely he'll join Ostend?
It looks as if Ostend will probably sign him, and then they'll probably make a profit on him by selling him somewhere else. So we're the losers out of this, you could say.
Yep.
Nice.
That's a very good point. Sorry, Kieran, what were you going to say?
I was going to say, I find it ridiculous if that's actually going to happen, that we've somehow allowed that to happen, that they're going to be getting him for about £1.5 million, and they've already got something lined up that they're going to try and flip him on for about, well, reports are saying closer to 10 million, but I'll believe that when I see it. But, I mean, the very fact we're allowing that to happen is just poor business on their part yet again.
And does it surprise you that Celtic are conducting themselves in a poor business sense? No, absolutely not. Jamie, yeah, a lot of good points here about the loan players. We spoke about this heavily in the last phone-in because we had the loan man himself on, Lewis Laird, and we were talking about this situation. Kieran, your thoughts towards what Jamie said there. Do you think these players have a chance, an opportunity next season? I mean, it doesn't have to be anybody in particular, but in the whole thing in general, it's up to you, mate. On you go.
I don't know. I think any player might have a chance if a manager, well, when we finally get one, is able to try and assess the squad he's got. So I suppose if they're willing to come back and try and fight for a place, I'd imagine the manager, whoever that may be, will give them time to try and prove themselves. But at the same time, I feel like Jack Hendry probably won't come back, is what we spoke about there. Seems to be a deal in place for that. I feel like the writing's already on the wall for a lot of them, to be honest with you. Like Marian Shved, probably Bayo as well. I don't see them really getting a chance, but you never know. They might be given a chance, but I doubt it.
Does that make you disappointed, Jamie, in the thought next season these guys may be coming back and not getting a chance, considering how many players we actually need? Would it be a letdown to you if we don't use them?
I mean, ultimately, I don't think any of them would start. Maybe apart from Encham. Is Encham even still here? I have no idea. Is he?
Oh, hands up in the air. We've been told he's not here. We've been told he is still here. We have no idea. Really, there's been no.
Athens were in for him, EUK Athens. I don't know.
Which just seems like a bizarre move, doesn't it? Athens.
He's better than that.
Yes,
he is better than that.
I feel like maybe not everyone agrees with that, but I feel like he is a player who has the potential to be better than that. But Jamie, I think a big question here is, if these guys do return from being on loan to all these clubs, Jamie, and they come back to Celtic this summer and then get sold and they don't feature for Celtic, does it worry you that we might have a failing loan system, that these players aren't going out on loans for the reasons they should be? It's just for the sake of doing something with them rather than developing them for our own good?
I think we're just trying to save money by loaning players that we don't want. But like, we are going to have so little. Like, before I came on here, I was looking at players we could sign, and I had 9 players that we need to sign. Plus Henry and Sham, Bolly, Shved and Bayo as our squad. So that's another 5. So that's 14 players that we would probably need to sign. And I just think Edward will leave, I will leave. That'll make us some money. We still got money from Frimpong and probably Tierney that still we haven't spent. But we're going to need to spend, 30 million on 14 players. Most of them has to start. The loan system, I think, is just get them off the books. If they come back really good, we can sell them on or have them in the squad. But I can't remember the last player out on loan. It was probably Ayer at Kilmarnock. They came back and was in the squad.
Yeah, so Jamie, I'm going to have to cut you off there to bring on the next call because we're a little bit behind on the schedule. But thanks for everything you've brought up tonight, mate. You've been another fantastic caller into the first 3, and I hope you enjoy your weekend, mate.
You too. Thanks.
No worries. See you after, mate. So we'll move on to the next caller in a second, but once again, another caller who's came on and made some very good points. And, talking about this loan system, it's got me thinking around that question that I posed to Jamie there. Ryan, do you think our loan system necessarily works? Because, as he said, I think the last player that I can remember going out on loan and coming back into the team might be Ayer. Has there been anybody since then? Am I just missing somebody? Am I glaking? Am I just forgetting? Because off the top of my head, I can't think of anybody but Ayer.
Maybe Ryan Christie at Aberdeen.
Ryan Christie, of course, Aberdeen. That'll be it. But I feel like we just stockpile these guys out with like Chelsea, and then they come back and we just get rid of them.
Depends on what we're using our loan system for. Are we trying to make players better, or are we just trying to offload them so that they're not in and around the team, so we don't have to use them? I don't think a lot of those players will make an impact next season. I'll be perfectly honest. I think we'll just try and stockpile them in order to get some money for them, so we can focus on this rebuild or reskin or whatever you want to call this thing that's happening, because I don't even know if it is a rebuild. You hear stuff about Shved's attitude and you're like, you don't really want that around the club. I've watched Bio a couple of times. He's very raw. Like, I don't know if you should be raw after playing football for 3-4 years. There's only so many times you can say that before you're like, he might not be quite Celtic class. I know maybe that's something that we don't really know what that is now, but I don't think he is Celtic class. I don't think he'll make it. It would have been nice for Hendry to get another chance, but I think at the same time there has been a lot of revisionism because he wasn't really good enough when he was here the first time, and I wonder if he could make that step up like he has done for Ostend under a team that have so much more pressure on them than Ostend will have.
Any thoughts, Kieran? Probably welcoming our next caller.
Nothing really. It's just I feel like our loan system really is flawed because, as Ryan said, that is basically just trying to get people off the books most of the time. Hardly any of them are actual trying to progress players on. A lot of them is just getting them out the door so they're not our problem for the year.
Right, well, we'll move on to our next caller anyway, because we've got a couple to get on before we have the Beans special along with the If They Can Play quiz. Up next is Ronan, who has John Joe Kenny down there in his profile picture. You got to miss John Joe Kenny, mate?
No, I'm not.
It's nice to have you on, mate. Tell us what you want to talk about. Bring up anything at all.
I just want to talk about the manager, to be honest. Be it Postecoglou or whatever you call him.
Yeah, well, can I quickly say, it was you earlier that was saying, don't laugh at my accent. I sound like Neil Lennon, didn't you? This is Neil Lennon on the phone, and he's here to fill us up for everything we'll say. Sorry to interrupt you. On you go again, mate. I just had to say it. I was like, before people in the comments do it, I may as well bring it up.
Yeah. No, I think he's a decent manager, to be fair. Like, I think we're quick to say there's football outside of the Premier League. Obviously, there is. He's been a bit like discredited for working in Japan and Australia. Mm-hmm. And I seen Boys Analytics. They had something up today. Just everything about him and the way his football is. I don't know what they use. Is it Y-Scout or something? To get all their data.
Good stuff, aye.
Yeah, and they just said that, he needs time and his football is good once he gets it going. I just think it'll not be the same as if maybe Howe had been wrote off maybe 2 or 3 months ago.
Yep, a really good point.
I think just with the whole Howe thing, it's almost as if it was a done deal, but it wasn't at the same time.
Yeah, so Kieran, I'm going to come to you here. A good point there, Ronan, that I wanted to come to, actually, they said, is this would have been really different if maybe the move of Howe collapsed ages ago. Now, I always raise the point that if Howe was rumoured on the Monday and it collapsed on the Friday, it wouldn't be that big a deal. It would be nowhere near as big a deal as what it was, because that was 2-3 months that happened over the course of. But this situation here is, what if Ange was identified, was rumoured, and was spoke about months ago? I think we still would have had that initial shock, raw reaction. But if we had maybe a longer time period to get to know him and see him, do you think that would have changed any opinions of Celtic fans, Kieran, or do you think it would have just been much the same?
I don't know. I feel like if you had more time, you might have had more time to get people inside. But at the same time, I don't know. I feel like that most people still would have written him off just because of where he manages. And I mean, we don't know exactly cover him in glory here as well, because we're still questioning his credentials. You're well within your rights to question the credentials of who's going to be the next Celtic manager, but as we're talking about, I don't think it's right to just completely disregard somebody's what they've won just because it's in a league that we might not pay too much attention to. And I feel like, and the whole thing about writing off his achievements in Australia and Japan, I feel like people might have a dig at the Australian league and that, but for the Japanese league, that's one that people really don't pay attention to, and I don't think we're in any position to sort of turn our nose up it. But in terms of Postecoglou, I don't know. I feel the reaction would have been much the same, but just drawn out in a longer period.
Aye. Hey, Ronan, what's your opinion very quickly on the situation with Ange? Are you kind of want to buy into the philosophy, the man himself, or are you still very much a skeptic like a lot of fans?
No, I like the sound of it. Like, I just think it would have been better if it was months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been another thing is there's been no communication either from the board. They should have said this is who we're looking at instead of like leaking stuff to newspapers and maybe getting like half a story and then nothing stories as well with Benitez and Mourinho. I think it would have been easier for them just to come out themselves and say this is what we're looking at and this is our plan. We've had nothing, and like everyone keeps saying the season starts in like 2 weeks, so we have no time at all. There's nothing really been outlined. Like, I know they said about how, but that was the first time we've heard anything about a manager, and it wasn't exactly what we wanted to hear. And they haven't even said anything about the director of football either. They haven't even, like, I know Anthony Joseph said they're looking at other alternatives, but Celtic haven't said themselves that they're even looking for one. Have they?
No, there's been nothing at all.
That was one thing that concerned me. Remember when they done the statement as well? We were looking for a manager. They didn't mention...
They never said head coach, didn't they?
No, they said manager instead of head coach, and that concerned me. I know you can still have that, but it's usually a head coach and a director of football.
And does that worry you, Ryan, that perhaps maybe that we've got to this point, they've just decided to maybe scrap everything and you know what, we'll just go with the tried and tested. We'll have a manager, we'll have coaches, and we'll go from there.
That concerns me though, because who's signing the players then? Because we don't have a head of transfers as well. Nicky Hammond's role is still being vacated, so there's a bit of a gap there. Who are we going to get to sign the players? Don Mackay? Is Don Mackay going to start signing them? And he'll probably bring in Finn Russell and Stuart Hogg. You know, all he needs is rugby, to be perfectly honest with him.
Is that you flexing your rugby knowledge on us now, aye?
That's it, showing my wee bit of expertise. Those are the two best players in the Scotland team I'll have, you know. But we need to get those positions filled. It's a bit concerning. I thought we'd be hearing more about signings. We've only had Liam Shaw in the door, and that's been done since about January, February time. So there needs to be a bit more movement. I mean, there's all this talk about we've not got a manager in, and that seems to be dictating the media and everything surrounding Celtic. But what's going on in the background, or what's not going on in the background? Where are the signings? We need 8 or 9, 10. Our season doesn't start in August like other teams. Our season starts in the middle of July. We'll obviously go back for pre-season in June. But it's just not ideal at all. There needs to be more plans and action. It shows you that we've not planned for this adequately at all. We've put all our eggs in the one basket, and now we're on plan B, and we're sort of making it up as we go along. It's a bit scunning because you don't expect more, but you want to expect more, but nothing seems to be happening.
Before we move on, Lewis Laird with a £2 donation, an absolute legend of the channel and a friend of the channel, of course, on the last phone in. Great stuff, lads. Look forward to more of these. I'm enjoying myself as well, must admit. And £2 from Joe Aribo as well. There's Joe Aribo up with £2. He's Donny boy. Look, Ronan, before we let you go and move on to the next caller, is there anything else you'd like to bring up?
Do you like John Joe Kenny?
I will safely say that I am looking forward to a Celtic free, John Joe Kenny free Celtic for the foreseeable future.
Oh. Right,
you sounded so unenthused by that.
John Joe Kenny.
It's just the thought of Beaton playing centre back against Benfica.
Oh, yeah. What a feeling that'll be. Ronan, mate, thanks for coming on. You're welcome on again anytime, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Cheers.
Right, have a nice weekend, mate. Right, that was Ronan. And look, all the callers have been brilliant tonight.
Can I just say as well, Ryan?
Aye.
See the fact we thought we were going to be without content to talk about early summer on this podcast, but we're going to be kept busy all the way through, man.
I know, we had all these plans. We had all these plans where it was like, oh, we could do this. We could talk about favourite ever players.
We're not going to need to.
No, this summer. We'll keep that on hold for next fucking summer or the winter break or some shite. We're so fucking full of drama. We've got a regular on. Well, I say regular. He's a channel legend on next. But anything you would like to say in regards to the last call before we do that, or are you ready to move on?
I just can't believe how much you sound like Neil Lennon. That was uncanny.
I was biting my finger a couple of times.
I was biting my tongue. Like, even, see, after I said, like, oh, by the way, you sound like Lennon, and I'm glad you told me earlier. When I just started pushing myself, I had to bite my tongue. Oh, Jesus. Oh. Anyway, up next is Paddy. Paddy, mate, how you doing?
What's happening, lads? Kieran, Ryan, how are you keeping, lads?
Keeping great, mate. It's good to have you back on. The first ever caller on the phone and back on again. Mate, take us away. Just say whatever you want. Bring us to wherever you feel like.
Right, I will turn a few heads here. I'm buzzing for next season. I just think, what can we lose? Like, it can't get much worse, can it? Than already what it has been, like, in a way. But I just think Angie's going to do a job. I just have a gut feeling in me. Again, as Ronan says, like, and turn up your nose in other leagues. We just kind of focus on and kind of Britain, and me, I focus on the League of Ireland. Just after watching Ireland scrape by Andorra with Stephen Kenny and Church, but I just think there's a lot of like stuff that we don't know about this guy. We don't know, like, I specifically not understanding Oceania football, but just looking at this guy's credentials, like everywhere he's went, he's kind of won something or achieved something. I think he went 36 games unbeaten with Brisbane Roar, and I just think if he's given his own team, his own players and stuff to work with, I think the tackling football that we hear from the Oceania media and from that side of the world, I think it could be a very interesting season ahead. And at the same time, it's like there's a wee silver lining in our bad season. St Johnstone won a double, so now all my mates who support City and United can't say it's a 1 or 2 horse race anymore. So I'm just like, well, St Johnstone won a double, like, so I'm kind of optimistic. And I think, again, not defending the board. No, I'm not a yes man. I'm not a no man. I just want what's best for the fans, us, and just the club as a whole. I just think, like, it's still early days. Like, it's a new environment for Dominic in terms of he's gone from rugby to football. Like, I don't know much about the lad. All I know is that he's in rugby, and I think it could be an interesting season ahead. It's just I have a gut feeling. When I have a gut feeling, it's normally good. It's normally accurate. So hopefully now that this guy can come in and do bits, I'm just really optimistic and positive.
I must admit, Paddy, I absolutely admire the optimism that is on display here. And I guess that is one thing that you can be optimistic about. The fact that you're getting a manager in who has been talked up so much in his respective leagues, who does show a pretty ambitious and pretty exciting brand of football. Ryan, for Celtic fans, should we start to maybe feel a bit more optimism? I know it's hard, but with that unknown quantity, is there something that in there that can make you go, do you know what, this can work? Or is it too hard for a lot of, especially the older support, maybe to think about other disasters? And even in the younger support, people like Pedro Caixinha, is it hard to balance that optimism with the same side of kind of worrying where the future might take us?
I always think this sort of moaning and that always happens before a manager's announced. Then once they're announced, everybody comes together for the one cause, and they all want Celtic to do well for the next season. I mean, you don't know unless you try, I guess. With these sorts of managers coming in, he's a bit of an unknown quantity, as I've said a couple of times. But he has won things in everywhere he's been, and the vast majority of the roles that he's took up. He's won the A-League, he's won the Asian Cup, he's won the J-League. I mean, it is still an achievement in itself to win the J-League because he can't speak Japanese. He has to go through a translator as well. I watched a funny clip last week of the translator getting booked for what he said to the J-League. Yeah. So I don't know what Postecoglou told him about that, but It's definitely interesting. I mean, it wouldn't be like Celtic to not make it interesting. I mean, so it's more a wait and see rather than anything else. But once we get a couple of bodies in, maybe we can feel a wee bit more optimistic. But I do admire the optimism.
At least they won't need a translator here. He's got Tom Rogic anyway. If he did, well, he's got Rogic. Surely Rogic may be able to show him around. Paddy, so basically what you're saying is you would like to see more Celtic fans kind of just rally around the guy and sort of start to believe in the I don't want to say hype, but you know there is that bit of hype there behind them from what we're hearing overseas.
Mm-hmm.
I just can't. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I totally respect everybody's opinion. That's just, I always look at two sides of the coin, the pros and the cons. You have to. But I just think he's had apparently his budget in Japan was so low, but by winning the league with them, like increased the budget. And in terms of apparently he had very little of a transfer budget. And what he's done with that Japanese, I think they were like a mid-table side, and then he took over, and then they succeeded and won the league. And I just think that's what I want to kind of segue into, like recruitment with Celtic. I think Celtic should be looking at the Championship or League One. I think we should be looking at the League of Ireland. Look at Jamie McGrath at St Mirren. 17 games, 14 goals and 8 assists or something like that this season. And I've seen him play in the flesh from Dundalk. I know it's probably a gamble, but there's a few, like I go to regularly to Sligo Rovers games when there was no pandemic, and there's just players you look at and you go, there's just something about him. He can go up another gear. And Jamie McGrath was one of those players when I seen him play at Dundalk. I was like, this guy can do something. I can see him doing well in Scotland, not particularly Celtic, but like St Mirren, St Johnstone, where, well, if he succeeds there, then Celtic should take a gamble on it. And I just think we should look at players who are like not getting a look in at their respective clubs, such as if they're like a third choice right back at Bayern Leverkusen. What can go wrong? Like they're training at a high caliber and a high standard. And I just think that's where our recruitment, we should be looking obscure and just looking at kind of the regulars, if you know what I mean. Like look at Frimpong, Man City Academy, and he's off to as much as it hurt. He went to Leverkusen, like, but it's just I think our transfer policy as well, we need to keep changing it, because the time during Lennon's first stint, I think the transfer policy was sign players at 23, 24, kind of developed but not in their prime yet, and then kind of let them do the thing and footballers come and go. But I just think that now with an under 21 tactic, kind of look at between under 23s and look at all these obscure leagues and try and recruit. But I think this man, as I said, Ange, sounds like he's capable of doing work on a budget, which don't know how, but we're a club that can work on a budget, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and do you know what? You make a lot of points there that are good. The one point I picked up on, though, and I wanted to say something about in kind of reverse, was he said, "Oh, like your third choice Leverkusen left back, for example, what could go wrong?" I'll tell you what could go wrong. Jeremy Toljan, mind the third choice Dortmund right back that we ended up signing. That is what could go wrong. No, but I understand what you're saying definitely about recruitment. And before we move on and we kind of go to the next call and that, we'll talk about that for a second, Kieran. What do you think about Paddy's opinion there, and maybe looking at these leagues like the Championship, League One, even over in Ireland? Because the interesting thing was, when Eddie Howe was the one that was linked with the job, I think a lot of us fans accepted that those were the kind of signings that Eddie Howe would make. He would be looking in the Championship, he'd be looking in League One, maybe the lower tier of the Premier League, because he knows those divisions. But now that it's not Eddie Howe, that kind of goes up in the air a wee bit, but it doesn't mean we have to completely rule it out. So what do you think about the recruitment next season?
Recruitment's always something that comes up on the podcast, and I feel like we're all equally the same in who do Celtic actually sign? Let's say when you sit down and think about it, even in the past, like Celtic don't really have too much of a pattern in terms of we sign players like mostly for this league. Like obviously you've always got your ones that shine in our league, and then we go and pick out the best of the rest sort of thing with David Turnbull and players like that. But in terms of going to these obscure leagues, it's down to the scouts, and we've had a good few success stories with Wanyama and Van Dijk and for teams that we would never have known anything about these players. But then you've also got your Marian Shveds and your Bios and the ones that haven't quite worked out yet. So I don't know. There's always a risk with every single transfer comes with risk. But I don't know if people are willing to keep taking the risks, especially in the support, because I feel like a lot of people get frustrated when we sign for these leagues, like in the Slovakian league, and because they don't have any idea who it is, they instantly think, oh, they must not be Celtic quality. But at the same time, we're hardly the people to be running the roost over transfers, because, as I said, we don't have a clue when it comes to anything like that.
Well, Paddy, we'll have to move on to our next caller and such. But it's been an absolute pleasure once again having you on, mate. You always come on with a bit of optimism and a bit of positivity. That's what I like.
Cheers, lads. Thank you very much.
No worries.
Have
a good weekend. See you after, mate. Well, Paddy on again. Once again, always a delight. Yeah, I've seen Stefan's in the chat. Before we welcome on Mr. Beans, because it sounds like I'm talking about Ron Atkinson, Mr. Beans. He's on next. But Stefan's in the chat. He's saying, I don't know if it's been covered, but thoughts on Strachan and Kennedy possibly staying. Now, I can't remember who I posed the question to earlier.
I think it was me.
Was it you, Kieran? Ryan, what are you thinking about that, mate? Kennedy and Strachan, are you buzzing? I'm buzzing. We get to have a laptop, the touchline again.
Yeah, I mean the whole laptop thing. You see, if you're winning games, that doesn't get talked about, but when you lose games, that becomes a sort of first target. In order for the rebuild to actually be a rebuild, there needs to be a clearing of the decks, and that includes the coaches that are in the dugout. I think they all have to be Ange Postecoglou's, unless he specifically says he wants John Kennedy and Gavin Strachan. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, it's counterproductive. I mean, I know that probably won't happen, but it would be nice to get a clearing of the decks. The validity of the rebuild totally it gets lost if you keep them on, because they're part of the old regime. It's supposed to be a new era that we're ushering into, and we've still got some of the old coaches that are still there. Like, obviously, I'd be fine with Stevie Wood staying in that. He's been a good coach. It's been proven with his work with Fraser Forster and Craig Gordon, etc. But these two have been in kind of the forefront of some of the bad results over the past season. So I think it needs to be fresh coaches, if I'm being honest.
Right, well, ladies and gentlemen, look who it is. How you doing, mate?
Lads, see before we go live, how much am I getting paid for this?
You can fuck off. As much as I know.
I just want to say, Kieran Auld, it's an absolute pleasure, mate. Every time I've done anything, it's usually with these two mugs. So you're doing great, mate.
You got a fresh face.
That's nice. 2 mugs after everything I've done for you. I'm appearing on two of your podcasts. No, but in all seriousness, people in the chat who don't know about the man, the myth, as Lewis is saying, the man, the myth, the Beans. This is Beans, co-host of the Fit's Been Happening podcast with his better podcasting partner Fitzy. It's nice to have you on again, mate. I'm sure it's going to be a roller coaster with you. Kick us off. What you want to talk about?
First off, great show. Paddy, who was just on, kind of leads me in perfectly to what the kind of mode I wanted to go. I'm not disagreeing with the kind of theme of the night or the points that have been made. And was it Mark that had the tattoos?
Yes, that was Mark.
He made some good points around the board. And listen, we've got no reason to trust the board or Mackay, because Mackay was selected by Desmond and Lowell. Would be silly to trust him, but I think we've got to have some sense of positivity looking at all this. We've called for change, we're getting change. In terms of the recruitment, I think Mackay and Lowell, whoever it is that's made the decision, they went out on a limb. They made it was a big risk holding off for Eddie Howe. At the end of the day, it looks as if it was more Eddie Howe not being able to get the staff that he wanted, so he's pulled out of it. Or Celtic for turn around and said, "Nah, listen, we've got to crack on. We've already went way too long with this." Yeah, I think that's a knock-on effect of what we see with season tickets. That thing that came out today, real fans, real football. I think that's a slogan, something they've put money into, and a campaign they've put money into, and the expectation that they'd have a manager and have a bit of positivity so far. So I think everything's starting to unravel and look shambolic. But I'm going to be positive about it. I think Postecoglou is. I think it'll be a good appointment. It might fail, but I think from everything that I've heard, and just like, I mean, we were texting each other that night it broke about like sitting flinging articles and YouTube videos at each other, but and we usually do that anyway. But it's about
that's a normal night. That's a normal night. But yeah, you drive. Oh, sorry, on you go. Keep going.
No, I was just going to say, just to finish up on Ange Postecoglou, I think from what I see about everything with him, and I want to go into the coaches, but in terms of everything that he brings with him, the thing that stuck out the most for me is, see if he comes in and he sets a standard, and see if you can't get to that standard. It doesn't matter if you're Scott Brown or Marion Shved. If you're not getting to that standard and you show no sign that you want to get to that, you're out the door, and we'll get somebody else in to replace you. And that's what we've had with you guys. Were making great points about the bios and the rest of it. These players didn't cut it at Celtic. It's not as if they were great talents and we sent them out on loan. They weren't cutting it at Celtic. They've then gone out elsewhere and thought, I really need to make a point of myself here, and they've done that. So he'll be able to get the best out of players in that respect, and he won't have that kind of playing Scott Brown over sorrow type patter.
Yeah, look, I've never met anybody who's optimistic in my life. I must admit, Beans, that's not a bad thing. That's not me slate, you don't worry. But if people are saying Ryan Christie's shite, Beans is there to tell them no. If people are saying that James Forrest isn't important, Beans is there to tell them he is important. And then now, when people are a beautiful human being, when people want to put down Ange Postecoglou, Beans is there to back him up. Ryan, yeah, let's try and be positive about it for a second, and let's try and be as optimistic as Beans here. A lot of good points from Beans there. I don't know if there's any point that you want to particularly coming back and answer on, but in terms of how we look at Don Mackay and how we look at the manager, and maybe these guys get a chance. Maybe as the kind of guy and the kind of manager who can maybe inspire a lot of these players and maybe inspire the support when he gets the chance to meet them. Is that something to be excited about?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I read that he was talking about was he likes the sort of pressure on him. He sort of thrives under the pressure. That's the sort of manager we need in charge of the team. It's going to be a very, very much a pressure-filled season as it is in any season with Celtic. So it's good that he's up for that sort of challenge, and it's good that he stands up for his own morals as well. I mean, I've seen that he's walked out in a couple of jobs and that, but I mean, there's positives and negatives to that, but I like that he's headstrong in that sense, and he won't be a yes man as such.
Yeah, because that's the point I wanted to touch on. I think first impressions were perhaps that Peter Law was getting his man, and Peter Law was getting and Dermot Desmond were getting a yes man, but by all accounts from what we've heard, and if you read further into it, he's not that kind of character at all.
No, and he's getting good reviews from other managers as well. Like, I know you don't want to really talk about Brendan Rodgers and Pep Guardiola, but they both very Pep Guardiola.
No, Pep. No, go back to the name before that. No,
but they were speaking really highly of him. He seems like a sort of diamond in the rough or whatever. I don't want to call Australia the rough because that just sounds harsh in that. But it's not really known about league, especially over here. But there's definitely
like
some.
Like man sitting in Coatbridge Main Street slagging Australia.
I know. I was about to say, if Australia's fucking rough, what are we? We must be.
I know. I'm still trying to shake that level 2 rumour that goes about. There definitely are some optimistic points. Like with any managerial appointment, there's going to be risks, but the more you think about it, the more you come around to it. I know I sort of change my opinion every 2 minutes, I feel like, but once he is appointed, if that is to be the case, and everyone's going to be behind him, I think, and we'll all just start pulling in the one direction, hopefully, because there's no other way to go. We can't have this infighting forever. We need to all get back to what we're good at, supporting Celtic.
Yeah, Beans, I want to ask your opinion on it because you'll obviously be very strong-minded on this, and you'll be very much of a set opinion. But what do you think of these people who are just suddenly writing it off and they're too ignorant to go and look in and appreciate the fact that he is a manager who's succeeded and he's done things? Do you think that is just down to, we put the clip up on Twitter the other day of Kieran kind of rambling on about, I don't want to say rambling because it was a bit of a good point, but Kieran was making...
Cheers for that,
But Kieran made the point about that kind of ignorance that the English have, and now that was us. What is your thought on people who just don't want to have it and just write it off straight away?
Nah, I think it comes from a different place. I don't think that's something that we would usually do as Scottish football fans or Celtic fans. And Kieran made a great point about it. And I think it's born out of frustration for Celtic fans. And I think that because everyone else in Scottish football is looking at Celtic in such a comical view, that to go for this wild card, it just looks absolutely hilarious. And the last wild card that happened in Scottish football was Pedro, and that went that way. So I think that see if this appointment happened after Brendan Rodgers, it'd be a stroke of genius. It would be all over the place. It'd be fantastic. And I know we're not getting Fergal Harkin, but if we go and get a director of football in, and Ange Postecoglou is as strong-minded as he is, and he's got his own way of sticking to football, and his coaches as well, and I can't remember who made the point about it, but they're for their age, they're quite young, but they're very well they're very well renowned in their own spaces, and that to me says, how many times have we seen at Celtic we're getting people in because their names, especially this season, Duffy and the rest of it, that's not what we want to see. We want, and Derek Ray talked about it a lot in the last couple of months about Celtic need to go and get people. The Celtic need to sign management and staff the same way that they want to sign players. You want to sign people with potential who you can then sell on. If we go and break a budget on Eddie Howe and it turns out a misery, we then need to get rid of him, and that's going to cost us even more. So I think overall it's good. I know, and I think the frustration I get at people seeing Kennedy and Strachan, it's like, oh God, here we go again. But for me, we're having to wait for, because of COVID, and we're having to wait for certain things to get approved before it can all go through, and compensation with another club, which I have every faith that the club are trying to get that sorted as quickly as possible for their own best interest. But I think if that's the case and we need to wait for it, we need to keep them on it. We need to keep somebody on at the club, because if Ange can't come into the club for 3 weeks from now, let's say, and we're going into pre-season, you need somebody there. And Kennedy's had the team, and I know it's not what you want to hear, but I would rather it was Kennedy than Strachan than we go and get Gordon Strachan and, I don't know, name somebody else in, because that's what we would have to do. If they two turned around and said no, it would either be that or it'd be Steve McManus and you'd be getting Gary Caldwell in with them. Like, we wouldn't have a contingency plan for that. So I think keeping them on, I don't think it was in the plan. I don't think it's what Postecoglou would want. However, he's probably looked at it and thought, if the mess it's in, he needs to come in, and he's not going to come in straight away. He needs to go through all this process. He'll probably want guys that have worked with those players in the club, so that when they're in training, when they're talking about it, he can bounce ideas off them. I don't think Kennedy and Strachan are going to have a say, and by all accounts, as you've discussed, I don't think they'll be able to say anything to him. I think he'll have his own way of playing, and if they turn around and say, I don't think you should be doing that, he'll listen to it, but he'll probably stick to his own idea. So I can't even remember what you asked me, mate, but I'm very positive about it all.
You can speak, mate. There's no doubt about that. But before I ask you the big question, which comes after this, Kieran, I'm going to come to you here. A very good point about Strachan and Kennedy, because, of course, most people that we've been talking to and most people that we've seen in the chat they've been gutted. They've been absolutely gutted about Kennedy and Strachan staying on. But the big question is, and as Bean's kind of alluded to there, if Postecoglou has sat down in the seat, or been on I doubt he's been in Celtic Park, let's be honest, but if he's been on the phone and he said, yeah, I'll come to the club, they've spoke about coaches, they've ironed things out, they've settled it all, and he's been the one that sat down and said, I don't mind, keep them there, I'm happy with Kennedy and Strachan being there. Does that give more of an excuse for them being there because he's chosen that to happen, because he wants it to happen? Does it make it a bit more positive than what the original negativity would suggest?
I mean, if he himself has actually said, I wouldn't mind them staying on, then fair enough. But everybody just can't shake the feeling that they've been forced on Postecoglou. And I don't know. I mean, you've got the point of having to keep somebody there to try and transition and keep the team, hold the fort down, But in terms of that, it's going to be hard for people to no associate Strachan and Kennedy with the disaster that was last season. Is something, I think it was Mark made the point earlier about the taste in the mouth after last season. They two are very much associated with that, and it's going to be so hard to try and shake the stigma around them, because to us, they're just as much a disaster. They were part of Lennon's backroom team, and they never changed a thing when Lennon was out the door. It's pretty much the same we've seen week in, week out. But see as well, I just kind of get the mental image of Big Ange coming in and snapping Stratton's laptop at his knee. I just kind of get it out of my head. But I don't know. I don't know if it's something that he's wanting, or if it's been thrust upon him by the board. But I suppose we'll see if it plays out. But
yep. Baitons, if you were to take a wild assumption, do you think it's the board's decision or Ange's decision to keep those guys in?
I think it's a suggestion from the board that he's been fully on board with after chatting to them. Brendan Rodgers came in and made John Kennedy re-interview for the job and kept him on because of how good his interview was and how much he liked him as a coach and his philosophy. So listen, if he's good enough for the best British coach in the world right now, he's good enough for Mr. Oceania himself. So
Mr. Oceania, is that like Pitbull but exclusive?
Aye. Pitbull's got all the continents, but he's left that for Big Ange.
Big Ange, mate. Well, I've got the big question, right? I've got the biggest of questions. Would you like to take part in the If They Can Play quiz? The Beat the Pundit style quiz?
Of course I would, mate.
Hey!
I got absolutely embarrassed the last time I done a quiz on this channel. So
that's right. I forgot you and Fitzy actually had it against each other. Well, there it is. There's the graphic. But can they play? There it is. That's all we need to know. Can they play? Now, not to put the pressure on you, Beans. Not to put the pressure on you at all here. But so far, out of the 2 phone-ins we've done in this channel, the pundit has won both times. First time, Kieran Auld managed to defeat. Who was it the first time again? Because I know the second time Ryan beat Colin from State of Mind.
I didn't even know, but I absolutely choked the first couple of questions. I thought I was on the ropes straight away, but I was thinking about this earlier. I don't know who it was I was up against.
We'll need to go back and watch. I forgot. No disrespect to whoever it was, by the way. My apologies. So, Beans, you could be potentially the first ever person to beat the pundit on our show. Does that fill you with a bit of pressure? Or are you excited? Are you relishing the challenge?
the comment I was going to make I'll not do because we're live on YouTube. But yes, I'm very excited for this. In fact, I'm so excited. I'm like Ryan McGinley in level 2 in Coatbridge. But anyway.
Right. Well, I have got on me not a coin, but an SD card. This side of the SD card will be heads, and this side of the SD card will be tails. Beans, since you're the guest, since you're going to be playing the pundit, I'll let you choose who's heads, who is tails. Will Kieran Auld be heads or will Ryan be heads?
I'll go Ryan will be heads.
Ryan to be heads. Okay, right. So if I flip the SD card, well, you're going to be taking on Mr. Kieran Auld, mate, because it's tails that's came up on this side. So it's going to be Kieran Auld against Beans in the Beat the Pundit challenge. Now, in typical Beat the Pundit, or I need to stop saying Beat the Pundit, in typical but can they play fashion, Kieran Auld will be ejected from the call. I hope and I trust that he removes his earphones, and I will tell him in the group chat when to return to the call. Beans will answer his questions, blah, blah, blah. And then, when Beans is done, Kieran returns, and he will have a chance to answer the same 10 questions to see who gets more. So, Kieran, I'm going to trust you to go away and listen to some Olivia Rodrigo, have a laugh, have a drink, and don't. Why not? Why don't?
No, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. It was easier on the Zoom call, but now I'm this.
It's fine. I'll do it. I'll add you back. Right, so take your earphones out. I've taken you away, which leaves me with just Ryan and Beans. Ryan, you're just getting to sit, soak up, enjoy the weather. And we're ready. Are you ready, Beans?
No, this is going to go so bad, but do you know what? It is what it is. I'd rather lose to Kieran Auld so I've got respect for him.
Oh, Ryan, any thoughts there?
Beans said I was one of his favourite people, so I know the truth.
You know the truth.
I'm never going to spell your last name the way you want me to. It's just a fact now.
I know. It'll be like one of those things. I'm on my deathbed and he'll spell it right, and I'll be like, I can die in peace now.
Yeah, you just have a massive heart attack with a shock. And it just bumps you right off.
That of the monster, the amount of caffeine that's going into me.
Right, well, feel free in the chat to take part in the quiz and send it. Well, actually, I hope Kieran Auld doesn't look at the chat. I hope he doesn't. Ryan, put a message in the group chat for Kieran Auld not to look in the YouTube chat. Right, Beans, we're ready. And here we go. Question number 1. Who scored the opening goal in the 2018 Scottish Cup final against Motherwell?
McGregor.
Correct. That's 1-0 there. That's the Cal McGregor's right.
I can never remember that thing.
Question number 2. Which club did Jock Stein manage before Celtic?
Dunfermline.
No, that was before the other club. It was Hibs. But we'll move on. Dunfermline was. I thought it was actually Dunfermline before I looked it up. I'm not going to lie. Question 3. Celtic will attempt to qualify for the 2021-22 Champions League. Now, let's underline attempt. They will qualify. They will attempt to qualify for the 21-22 Champions League this summer. But where is the final taking place next season?
Wembley, fuck it, I don't know.
It's actually, I don't know the name of the stadium off by heart. It's in St. Petersburg, Zenit Stadium. That's where the final is going to be in 2022.
Gazprom Arena.
Might be. Question 4. Which player was sent off in the 2003 UEFA Cup final for Celtic?
Big Heedman.
Big Heedman. Who's Big Heedman?
Big Rab.
Big Rab. Who's Big Rab?
No. Oh my God. Why have I got that wrong?
Oh, did you guessing Rab Douglas?
No. Hold on. Why am I going blank here? Why am I going fucking blank? Oh my God. I've never watched that game back.
No, I Big Rab was his answer.
What else? No.
Right, okay.
Can I change it?
Go.
It's Bobo, isn't it?
It's Bobo, aye. We'll give
Right,
you
okay, right.
Dodgy. I hope Fionnual doesn't
Fuck,
watch
man.
back. It's dodgy. But we'll give it. Bobo Balde is correct. So we've got 2 out of 4 so far. Right, in the 2015-16 Europa League group stage, Celtic competed against Ajax, Fenerbahce, and which other club? So Ronnie Dyer's last season.
Ajax, Fenerbahce, and Scandinavia. Mulder.
Mold, that was correct. Yep, that's the answer. 3 out of 5. How many German players have Celtic have ever played for Celtic? How many?
4.
Correct. 4 is right. Can you name the 4 by any chance?
No.
No. We've got Ryan. Would you like to give it a go here?
Henkel.
Yep.
Toljan.
Yep.
What's his name? Compa.
Lampard. Yep.
I don't know now.
Was Bratback German? No.
No, not Bratback.
Oh no,
it was
he wasn't.
Andreas Tom. That was the 4th. There's your 4.
Aye.
There's
Would
your
be,
4
wouldn't it?
players there. Yep. Question 7. Which club did Artur Boric leave Celtic for?
Liga Warsaw.
No, it was Fiorentina. Fiorentina is
Did
who
you
he left
say
Celtic
for?
Did you say join? Did you from? No, for.
Sorry, fuck
yep.
that.
A bit of an Ange related question. Who was the last Australian player to sign for Celtic? Not to play for Celtic, to sign for Celtic.
Daniel Arzani.
Correct. Good answer. Apart from Ronnie Dyer, who was the last non-British manager of Celtic?
Why is my mind literally blank? Oh my god. Who'd that have been? Janssen?
No, it's not actually Wim Janssen. I would have said that. It's actually Josef Vengos. He was after Janssen. So it's the Dr. Josef Vengos, the late great. He was the last.
He's not in the North.
Yeah, he's from the North.
Right.
He's from the North. And finally, who scored Celtic's last goal in the 2020-21 campaign?
I can't even remember who
Yeah,
we played.
4-0 win against St Johnstone.
El Yunusi.
No, it was Karamoko Dembele. Remember?
So it was.
First
I've
goal
absolutely
for the
made a
club.
mess of all that.
Well,
I've
look, it's not bad. It's not bad. You got McGregor, you got Hibbs, you got Bobo, you got Mulder, you got 4, you got Arzani. You've got 6. It's not a bad score. It's not a bad score. 6.
See, forgetting who gets sent off in Seville is an actual, because this is a live quiz thing. Honestly, man, that's embarrassing. That is embarrassing.
Don't worry, we're about to welcome Kieran all back in. There he is on screen. I hope he can see us. Hello, Kieran. Hello. Is that him? We'll let him set up. We'll let him get his earphones set up. Yeah, mate.
2 seconds. It's not coming through my earphones and it's coming through the laptop. I had to mute the laptop, so I was just sitting listening to it run like a jet engine the full time.
A Boeing 747. Is that you? Just give us a thumbs up when you're ready in this end. That's you. Okay. That you. Right. Well, you won't reveal what score you have to beat, but are you ready, Kieran, to try? And the chat have been popping, by the way. Thank you to everybody who has been popping in the chat with some answers. Kieran, keep your eyes off that chat. But are you ready?
I go for it.
Right. Who scored the opening goal in the 2018 Scottish Cup final against Motherwell?
Cal McGregor.
Correct. Which club did Jockstein manage before Celtic?
I don't know. I'll just need to take a guess here. St Mirren.
No, it was Hibs, actually. It was Dunfermline. He started his managerial career at Dunfermline, went to Hibs, Scotland for, I think, a game or 2, and then to Celtic. Celtic will attempt to qualify, and underline attempt, as I said before, for the 2021-22 Champions League this summer. But where is the final contested next season?
I don't even think I've seen this. Wait, Istanbul?
No, it's not Istanbul.
I think get pushed back.
I don't know if that's what they're doing, but it's meant to be St. Petersburg. It's meant to be St. Petersburg. That's the scheduled final for next season. Don't know if they're going to attempt to move it again, but St. Petersburg is the one that's down in the notes. Which player was sent off in the 2003 UEFA Cup final in Seville?
Bobo Baldi.
Bobo Baldi, correct. Who was the fourth team in Celtic's 2015-16 Europa League group, along with Ajax and Fenerbahce? Ronnie Dyer's last season.
Mulder,
correct. Good answer. How many German players have played for Celtic? In the entire history of our club, how many German players have played for the club?
3.
It's 4, mate. It's 4.
Bastard.
1 off.
I could count 3 in my head, and I was like,
McGinley, would you like to remind us of the 4?
If I can remember them. Toljan, Tom... what's his name again? I can't remember.
Comper and Hinko.
Yep, that's it. That's the 4.
That's Tom.
Which club did Artur Boric leave Celtic for?
Fiorentina.
Correct. Who was the last Australian player to sign for Celtic? Not play for Celtic, the last Australian player to sign for Celtic.
Arzani.
Correct. Apart from Ronnie Dyer, who was the last non-British manager of Celtic?
But the Vengos.
It was Vengos. The doc is correct. Josef Vengos. That's the right answer. And finally, the last question. Who scored Celtic's last goal in the 2020-21 campaign?
Oh my God. Dembele.
Correct. It was Dembele. So, Kieran, you got McGregor right. You got Bobo Baldi. You got Mulder. You got Fiorentina. You got Arzani. You got Vengos. And you got Dembele, which means for the third time running, the pundit has beat the pundit by a score of 1. Beans got 6. Kieran got 7. Beans, mate, unlucky.
Listen, it's been a pleasure. I'm about to cry.
What a way to end off Beans' Made the Call. Mate, thanks for coming on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope you have a good weekend. I'm going to be seeing you anyway. And it'll be interesting to finally get to put an actual specimen to the person rather than just online presence.
I'm a bit feared after that. I know I'm a bit terrified after you described it that way. But listen, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. The show's been great, and keep them going because they're quality.
Thanks very much, mate. I appreciate it. You have a good weekend, my man.
Cheers.
Cheerio. Right. Well, we were meant to have another caller on at 20 past, but they haven't turned up. So I guess that means that this is us at the end of the show. It's been. Oh wait, no! I tell a lie. He's just turned up in the waiting room just as it looked as though we were about to finish off. But it was nice having Beans on there, Kieran. Before we welcome in our next caller, what do you make of your victory?
I mean, it's just another day at the office, isn't it? But I thought I was going to choke it, man. Yeah, I gave me the early questions. I fucked up. I was like, oh, no, it's going to be an embarrassment. Because what ones did you get right? You got Jockstein wrong, you got St. Petersburg wrong. So you got 2 of the first 3 wrong. And I couldn't even say I'd heard the answers to them before because I had no idea. So I wasn't even
Thank you to everybody in the chat who took part. I mean, we've got a Rod here. Rod, he's saying, great quiz, well done. Thank you very much. It's much appreciated. So we'll welcome on our last caller for the end of the show. And it's look, this is where I'm terrible. I'm horrible with these pronunciations. How am I pronouncing it? How is it?
Patter.
Is that how you say it? Wow, I did not. We not bad. How's yourself?
Aye, all good, man. Just Eddie Howe collapsed, not feeling the best. Like,
aye, that's it. You and Ryan McGinley. Ryan McGinley messaged me every night. He's like, I just want how. I'm just going to expose him.
You say that as well, though. So it's not just me.
I know it's not just
I am so sad.
HH. Yep, that's true. But the Enzo Express, as you've said there as well, I mean, that's long gone. It's away to fucking Italy. So where do we go?
It's a shambles, man. You know, we thought we were getting to the Brendan Rodgers 2.0 era, and now it could be Ronnie Dyler's era again. Reliving.
Oh yeah, respect on Ronnie's name. Let's put it. Let's take it back. Let's take it back to John Barnes or something instead. But anyway, what do you want to talk about? Anything in particular you want to talk about? You're the last guest on tonight, so feel free.
I have 3 questions for you, of course. With the board not letting, I think Lennon was sacked pretty much. I don't think he walked, but with the board not sacking Lennon until February, of course, removing the Palestine flags, and we're in a position now where we're getting a panic manager. What all could they do for you to make up their reputation, which now is tarnished in a way?
That's a really good question. I mean, what do they do to make it up? Kieran, I'll come to you first.
Reappoint Lennon.
Reappoint Lennon, aye.
That gives even more to talk about on here, man. But
it would get views. It would get views, by the way.
Back in the glory days when Lennon gets sacked. But no, I don't know, man, because we sit and talk about how much they fucked it up, but realistically, what is that out there that they could do to completely fix this? In my eyes, they would have got a bit of redemption. No, completely. It's going to take a long time for people to forget last season. But if we managed to get Eddie Howe, that would have went a long way in trying to pay back the debt. But I don't know. But for this point, I feel like it's pretty much impossible in the short term anyway. But I don't know about used to.
I think you could make allowances for Dominic Mackay. He's only new, you know. But you know, Peter Loyal's reputations, it's kind of like Neil Lennon's, you know, like a half of them would see him, and a lot of realistic fans will look at this season, you know, as Peter Loyal's. You know, this season shows a lot in Peter Loyal's, you know, it shows why Rodgers walked and all that. And
well, that was the big talk, of course, when everything kind of started to unfurl this season. There was a lot of people started to kind of not forgive, say, Rodgers, but there was a lot of kind of revisionism maybe and why it happened, Ryan. A lot of people were maybe thinking that there was a reason there, and it was Peter Lawwell. And I completely hear what you're saying, Peter, because obviously back when the season, back last week when everything collapsed, Ryan, you came to me and you were like, I'm kind of annoyed and I'm kind of, you know, worried about Mackay. And I was first to say to you, like, look, guys, be patient. He's not fully in the job, blah, blah. So there is that kind of wiggle room. But then again, he was meant to be that kind of fix as to starting the forgiveness of the club. And it's not quite going that way, Ryan. So it just making it harder for us to get a way back in terms of forgiveness.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know it's cliche to say, but Rome wasn't built in a day. It'll take a long time for this sort of relationship to build back up to what it potentially could be. I don't think the relationship between the board and the fans has ever been particularly great. I just think it's at a terrible point just now, but it's just untenable. If Dominic Mackay was to come out with on the 1st of July, the 2nd of July, and come out with a roadmap of where he wants the club to go in the next 3-4 years, even just a wee bit of communication, it would really help the fans be more connected to the board that's representing them or trying to represent them. I just want to know where this football club's going in the next 45 years, what the plans are for playing in Europe in terms of signing players, what sort of markets are we looking in, and all the commercial stuff to do with it as well. I know they can't go into too much for that sort of thing, but it'd be nice to have like a rough idea of what we're doing, because there seems to be this massive void between the supporters and the board, and it's quite gaping, this void, and it needs to get plugged very quickly, because there just seems to be more and more unrest, and when things do get back to normal, which we're hoping soon, I still think there'll be a lot of pent-up anger from the fans that will be wanting to be unleashed. I don't, maybe not riots or that, or unrest, but
you're inciting it on. Aye, you're going for it.
No, that's me. I'm off the list. But no, that they need to fix this relationship or repair it to a sustainable extent, I would say.
Sorry, go ahead.
On you go. No, feel free. On you go.
Awesome. Past the John McGinn deal is whenever I feel like the board's just, you know, I've never had 100% faith in them, because we've just passed the end, went for cheap options, you know, and we've never, like, the squad we could have if we never sold our best players and we went for the players we could have got, like your McGinns, your Ivan Tonys, even buying back Binkovic wouldn't be the worst. And getting Foster too this season's been massive. I think the only reason we won the league for the 9 in a row ones because we'd Foster in goals, to be honest.
Yeah, I think you're right in saying, you know, since moments like that, that's when people started to realise the kind of the wrongdoings in the board, especially. My problem, and I'll be the first to stand up and say I was naive just because we were winning trophies. Yes, I desperately wanted to sign McGinn. I really did. And everybody knows in this channel, if they've watched long enough, I'm a huge fan of McGinn. I was desperate for him to come to Celtic. But I was naive because we kept going and winning trophies. That was the issue with me personally. I was like, you know what, that's a treble. We didn't fucking need McGinn. But now that we get to this point, I'm like, wow, they were the seeds being sown for a lot of mistakes coming up. Your second question, have you got your other question there?
Yeah, would you say with Kennedy and Gavin Strachan, of course, in the background, most of the reason, Damien Duff left for the 9 in a row season, he was spoke very highly of course, and we replaced him with Gavin Strachan, and of course, half of the reason we probably, Neil Lennon, he could take a lot of the blame for last year, of course, but he didn't have his own backroom team at the same time as he did in the first year. He didn't have Johan Malaby or Jerry Parker. So could you say we're almost destined to fail with Kennedy and Gavin Strachan as part of Big Ange's background team? Yeah,
we've already kind of touched on that, haven't we? We've tried to look at both sides. We've tried to look at both the positives and the negatives, and maybe if Ange wants to be here. But Ryan, it's a good point in terms of, are we kind of, are Celtic guilty with keeping Strachan and keeping Kennedy in that job? Are Celtic guilty of making the same mistakes that have been holding them back over the past few years?
Yeah, it's jobs for the boys. I would say it goes further than that. The fact that you've got maybe Steve McManus and Darren O'Day doing coaching jobs as well. Personally, I just want the best people available for the job rather than giving all your jobs to the ex-players that need, well, maybe not need the money, but they need to be part of something. I would much rather have the people in the job that are the best equipped to sort of get the right results, because it's you speculate to accumulate. If you put in the money's worth of getting these coaches in, then you'll get the results in the long term. I do think we need to start afresh. I do get all the points that Beans was making about Gavin Strachan and John Kennedy, but at the same time, I do want a fresh start. I want these two guys that Postecoglou's bringing in, I want those two to be his sort of backroom staff, unless of course he does want those two in the job alongside him. If that's the case, then that's all good if he personally wants them as part of his team. There's pros and cons, but I'm more on the cons side than the pros at the moment. I don't know. The last season's still lingering on, really, and it's still really sore because it was so recently. So maybe that's why I've got such a strong opinion on those coaches. But at the end of the day, they were part of the mess that we found ourselves in.
What about you, Bedard? What are you thinking? Are you on the side of trying to be optimistic about it, or do you just want them completely gone?
Get them the fuck, man. We need a complete...
I like that. It's like we've got the Irish Kieran Old here. That's what I like to see.
We need a complete new change. The starting 11 is going to be more or less completely different next year. Just maybe Turnbull in there with Taylor and Sorrow, and even if Forrest is there. But if the whole club's going to go through this new year, we need new coaches. Kennedy's been there since Ronnie Dowler's been there.
That's right.
And Gavin Strachan's just sits on the laptop there. God knows what's on that. But
that's the thing about Kennedy. I think it's even longer than that. I think Kennedy's been directly involved with the club since his injury. I think he's been there. Yep. He's been doing a lot of things with the club. Obviously, it's part of the first team. He's not been there that amount of time, but
that
still
would
been involved.
Me, by the way, if he was to move into the scouting role, because he was a scout at one point at Celtic in the start of his career. See if he was to become like maybe the chief scout or something, it wouldn't surprise me. It wouldn't make me happy, but it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, jeez, oh Christ, nearly coughed there. Your final question, then, go on, pop it out before we get to the end of the show.
Next season, I think, is massive for us. If it goes wrong, then we could potentially be behind Rangers for many years. So, how much time would you say we need to give Ange Postecoglou? If it's not going well next year, what point would you look at and like we need to get rid of him here?
We'll try and go around a round table here very quickly because it's a really, do you know what? It's a really good question that actually we've not discussed once amongst all of this. Ryan, we've been live many times. Kieran, we've spoken group chats. I've been on the channel myself, and I've not spoke about this once. I've not spoke about when do you draw the line, what happens if it is a disaster. Kieran, how much time can we afford to give this to work out? Is it about being patient? Do we give him that full season? I sounded like I was going to go in there. I know. Sorry about that.
I know, it really did, mate. It really did. But I think we do, like, as much as we want instant success, I mean, we need to be realistic that this is going to take a decent bit of time to actually do it. But I think you can afford on time if you can see the positives there that we're building towards something. If it's a horror season and we finish umpteen points behind them again, then you're at the stage where, is there any signs that this is going to actually improve, or have we bet on a lost horse here? Because I mean, you don't know what's going to happen, but as long as there's signs there and it's not like an absolute mauling the way it was this season, I'd imagine if we finish second, you'd probably afford them another season. But I suppose it's about buying into a project, isn't it? But I think that's something that's not a lot of fans will maybe need to get their head around, that this won't be the instant turnaround we all hope for.
Kind of like Gerard's first year with Rangers, you know,
the
year before that we were pumping them every game, and you know, with Gerard's even first game, we dominated them, but we only beat them 1-0, like, and that was different, you know, to beat them 5-0. So, you know, maybe patient. Gerard's only really started getting the results this year with Rangers, and it could be the same with us. Maybe take the 2 seasons.
You want to see those kind of changes come in effect straight away. You know, I know it's hard to expect so much in the first season, the first few months or whatever like that, but you need to see something. If it gets to the point, this is the big question. What if it gets to December and we're at the same point as we were in December of last year, Ryan? That's when questions will start to arise. Now, touch wood, I'll do it right now, that doesn't happen, but there's a very realistic possibility if things don't go the way that he intends them to.
You see, the league that we play in, we've got to play every other team, and then we play Rangers 3 or 4 times a season. A Celtic, at the very worst, a Celtic team should be beating everyone else around them and then giving up a good fight against Rangers. See, if we visually improved on the park, and maybe we're not getting results, but you can see that the style of football's a lot better, then I can deal with going without a trophy for another season. We've had it good the past 9 seasons, let's be honest, and I just want the rebuild to be done completely properly, so that we have long-term success, because it's all good winning one title, but you need to keep it going, winning multiple ones. It's all about sustainability, and I want us to be in the right sort of place for the next 4 or 5 years. So if it takes another year of not winning the title, but we've improved, and then we'll win the next 2 or 3 or 4, then I can take that, because long term we're doing the planning and we're putting plans in place for the club to be a success in the long term. So that's where I'm at with it. But I'm prepared to give it time. But at the same time, if it is an utter disaster like last season, then you've got to kind of sack whoever's in the job, unfortunately.
What about you? Finally, just to end this off in your call, Bedard, what were you thinking? How much time are you willing to give the big man?
I think, yeah, like Ryan said, like Kieran said, if the football's different, you know, and we're playing good, entertaining football, we're not getting pumped in Europe. But, you know, the league for us this year was probably lost after the Hibs game away. We drew 2-2 because Rangers weren't always going to drop many points this year. So probably about November time, if we're the same as last year, then we'd probably have to move on, because I don't think we can afford to lose the league next year, to be honest. Because I think the money reward, the Champions League, I think Rangers will go on to dominate for many years if we don't win the league next year.
Well, your call has been much appreciated, my man. And as I've said to so many, I've said to every caller today, it's been a really great host of callers we've had. But thanks very much, mate. And you're welcome on any time.
All right, cheers, lads. Have a good one.
No worries. You have a good weekend. Hail, my man. Well, that was good, enjoyable, and it brings us to the end of the show. It has been a fascinating one, and once again, it's good to get it all off the chest. We've had some good callers, Kieran.
I know. I mean, it's been a pretty successful. We've not had MD coming on and what meant no. So I think that's an instant success.
Baby. I know we managed to go through the whole stream without any Okoflex moments, which is what I'm very thankful for. Ryan, it's the first time we've done it live, and yeah, I think Clyde One and the Go Radio and all the rest of it will be thinking, wow.
Exactly. Do you know we're coming for them? I mean, I'm a big fan of Go Radio. Maybe not so much Clyde One, but as a regular.
Hey.
No, I know your idol is on there. No, I'm only joking. I like them both. I'm just going to sit on the fence for that one. No, it's definitely a good concept and a good idea, and it's worked today, and it's worked in the other ones, the pre-recorded ones as well. So I think it's something we need to keep on doing, because at the end of the day, people just need a platform and an avenue to speak their views about Celtic, and it's good that we're providing that.
Very nicely put. Apt analysis, Ryan. The way we started the show with Kieran, we'll end it with you. Look, listen, everybody who has been watching, we had over 700 viewers for a very long time, and here we're still at 550. It's been an incredible bit of retention from you guys, and thank you all for watching. The main thing is now, please like the video, please drop a comment, please subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you think of this concept, what you think of these live phone-ins, because if they are a success and you are enjoying them, none of us are grudging from making it a more regular occurrence and doing them weekly or bi-weekly. We really don't mind about that. We want to do this as much as we can. We want to talk as much as we can. And we want to provide the platform, as Ryan said. So the main thing is go and comment, go and like the video, share it out, let people know that you enjoyed it, and make it grow as big as possible. As it says on the bottom of the screen, if you want to be involved in future phone-ins and you have enjoyed what you've heard and seen today from everybody who has contributed, go and follow the podcast page with the link that is on screen at Sellik Podcast. And when we put up the tweets, you can come and join in. Kieran, you look awful tired, so I better wrap up the show. Lads, it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on again. And yeah, we'll be back with I don't know who'll be on it, but we'll be back with a podcast some point early next week, or Sunday or Monday, probably Monday. And we'll have a bit of fun with that, hopefully, with a manager. But who knows with Celtic, huh?
I'm going to count on it.
I wouldn't count on it at all. Ryan?
Maybe still Eddie Howe, I don't know. No,
get out there.
Nah, just give us a manager at all costs. Manager at all costs. Let's just get the wheels in motion.
Yep. Thank you very much for watching. Have a good weekend, everybody, and we'll see you next time.